Peace, family. You are now tuned into G Consciousness Live. What's going on with the fam out there? I know it's late, but hey, when you get up in the morning, you can always listen to this, or you can listen tonight if you're not doing anything. Some of y'all might be at work on the clock. Some of y'all are in the bed sleep. But y'all know what it is. It's late night, and G Consciousness got to definitely get it in. We should have the brother Kevin G joining us momentarily. Let's look at something. Make sure my sound is coming through clearly. Let's look at something. Make sure my sound is coming through clearly. Yeah, so everything. Let's look at something. Make sure my sound is coming through clearly. Alright, so everything seemed pretty clear. Man, that boy Lex over there mad, ain't he? That boy letting off some steam over there. He on a super rant. A demonic rant at it. The God of the Old Testament. Response to LEX VORTEX. Man, it's a shame when we make a brother all together drop the Bible because they mad at God. You know? So this is what happens when you pick that book up, you don't understand what this tool is saying, and you try to use it the wrong way, you know, and you get mad because somebody start dealing with the truth of what the book is saying. So I think that, you know, brother over there steamed up. He didn't even block me from the hangout. He blocked me. I can't even make a comment. You know what I'm saying? The brother didn't block me, man. Peace be upon that brother, though. We're going to pray that demon up off that brother tonight, though. Yeah, so we can see that the brother upset. He over there on a super rant, a demonic, devilish rant at it. But yeah, so we're going to deal with some more of his sins and continue to dab on them. Yeah, man, you know, but it's late night. Y'all know what it is. We still gonna get it in though. Um, we're gonna screen share here and we're gonna deal with some things. Let's pull back up this brother's video. Let's pull this video back up. Make sure y'all let people know that G Consciousness is live. And make sure y'all share this on you guys' pages, Facebook, or whatever the case may be. Peace be to the brother G. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's happening, man?
Man, that brother over there having a demonic relapse, man.
He gave me a breakdown or something.
Right, that brother is heated over there, man. He did it to himself, man. Like but what you know, Lex go through these stages, man, where he go through these stages where he ain't consistent, man. You know what I'm saying? One minute the Bible this, the Bible that, and then it's this Luciferian doctrine he talking about, and he's dark. You know, he's dark, and then now he's light. It's just too much going on, man.
Man, the only thing that I like dark and light at the same time is my Thanksgiving turkey. And this brother, and this brother right here, he talking about he dark and light. I said, damn. I said, what this nigga turkey chicken? What the heck? You know, I mean, yo. But here's my thing, though, man. Here's my thing, man. See, so there's times where he's consistent with us. He argues from the standpoint of intelligent design. Uh, very good arguments, very intelligent brother when it comes to that. But yet, when it comes to correction and where his foundational beliefs are, it's like all of a sudden there's an issue. Like if you notice, what you've been doing mostly, but I just helped out a little bit, is that the brother we just address scholarly points, academic points, points with his doctrine, the records that he's using, and the things that he believes in. Not talking about the individual themselves, but when you have that type of response, just say, you know what, I should go back and look at it, or they humble themselves and say, I'm gonna go study that, or they should say, well, let me refute you in that point. Then they should take that road and refute it.
Right.
When they resort to, let me talk about these nuts and let me talk about this, that, and the other, it's like you basically admitted defeat, bro. I mean, he hasn't addressed the points. Just address the points.
Right. That brother over there looking. That brother over there looking sad in the face, man. I feel sorry for the brother, man. He he just got to be more consistent, man. And the brother ain't consistent, man. And he ain't. That we just annihilated that um the sacred book of John, man. We annihilated the Gnostic writings and all of that stuff, man. We basically, man.
Yeah, yeah. See, so I mean, a lot of the roots of that stuff come from Buddhism, which wasn't around. Uh, Buddhism came like much later. A lot of that stuff, like for instance, the Hammurabi text and all that came from Egypt. Those were Christians who twisted the gospel, who had an influence from
Hey, hold on. Go ahead. Go ahead. You got it. I'm sorry.
they had an influence from Greek philosophy, from Plato, from what they learned in Egypt. If you want to say they came from Zoroastrianism, the earliest reference you have to Zoroaster Herodotus when he wrote about the religions of Persia. But when Herodotus wrote about it, he didn't include all the significance of what the religion actually was. The earliest copies of the text that concerns with the that religion was called the Avestas, and that's from 1200 A.D., approximately 1100 years after Christianity has started. So you can't. There's no proof textually that it came from that. And the earliest reference that we have of the Zoroaster God, which is Ahura Mazda, was to Darius' inscription on the Darius inscription on the stone, which give praise to Ahura Mazda, and that he will not tell no lie, and he will always be just and upright. Now, here's the thing: if anything, that was their take on the Hebrew God. Because if you notice in the Bible, it talks about the two Persian kings, or Persian and what's the other one? Persian and
Meads.
Medes. Was Darius and Cyrus. We see that there were edicts from Cyrus on the cylinder that he actually restored temple and rebuilt kingdom. That follows the scene that we read in Ezra and Nehemiah, and especially in the book of Daniel, when he talks about the bear with the three ribs in his mouth, and concerning with the things that he did politically, the power that he had, and the things that he done. So, if anything, that just supports that they believe that a higher power governed what they have done. That's it. And the only other reference that you have other than that is the Parsees, or the priests that went out back to the Babylon, that are said to have come from Persia. And here's another thing. Thing is Zoroaster or Ahura Mazda, then you have to take that up in 333 AD, 333 BCE, when Alexander the Great had already destroyed the libraries that were in Persia, and all the priesthood and the religious stuff. So there was nothing left to give any influence to the Gnostics unless they were post-Christianity, were borrowed after the fact. So there's nothing to substantiate the Gnostic Gospels. It's not. Now, if you want to get mad about that and rant, It say religious nuts. Fine, but you have to, if you want to be historically accurate, if you want to be correct, it was religious nuts and fanatics and twisters that made up what you call the Gnostic religions. It was Christians who mixed it up with Persian stuff, who mixed it up with Egyptian stuff, who was influenced by Greek understanding, who made this up. So if you want to talk about a fanatic in a bowl of tricks mixed up with Lucky Charms, it will be the stuff that you're following.
Right. That's crazy.
It makes no sense, man. It doesn't.
Right. Let's get ease off into this sleazy video he made. We're gonna go into it. I'm a screen share.
Mm.
Good
Hey,
God.
my mic sound all right?
It sound cool.
All right, good, good.
It sound better than what this truck next door to.
Oh man.
Oh man. I want to go there and man, take the battery, unhook his battery cable.
Hey, you seen Beverly Hills Cop and found a banana in the tailpipe?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Ding, that's how my jump shot is like that.
After hearing that music, I'm thinking Lex got the appropriate music for his videos.
That's,
This is your server. This is the data inside your server, like invoices, customer lists, and databases. It's the data that keeps your business moving.
what this?
Yeah, more
Okay.
Right.
Now, Adam said, "This is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." Now, let's go through that. Now, I'm gonna give you this, right? You to the real point I'm talking about, and that's this big fall, right? The eating of the apple, casting out of the garden. Now, when you see these words, you are going to be shocked when you see what it really says in the Hebrew. You're going to be shocked. So let me go through this real quick, and we're going to get to the good stuff, y'all. All right, so this is basically an Adam said, Amar. This is now, let's see what that means real quick. So this is now bone, self, same body, very life, strength, bone, essence, substance. So he could have very well said, this is my essence, this is my substance. Bone, body, limbs, members, external body itself. See that, that could have been very well translated. This is my essence, substance. All right. A bone, by extension, the body, figuratively, the substance.
You got something you want to say about that?
Man, he basically reads what the Bible says. Keep in mind, he says he might as well have said this. He did say that. Does he realize he's reading an English translation? King James Version that was translated in 1611 to Old English? So in the Hebrew, he did say that. In the actual language, he did say, this is my essence. This is my body. So to say he might as well have said this, he's assuming that Adam spoke English.
Right. But see, when you look at it, it goes beyond, more so beyond essence, because now we have to look at, we're dealing with material here. So you can't use essence. It's more so beyond essence. It's talking about substance now. You see what I'm saying? So when you look at the construct of what it's saying, let's look at it. It says flesh. So you have flesh here, basar.
Basar.
So when we look at flesh, we see that flesh is basically skin, body. You know what I'm saying? And so as we look at the construct of of the text, we know that it's much more than essence, because now it's talking about material things. It's talking about the literal body. And so this is how we can look at the Hebrew and say, well, We can't just fit anything in there because I think he said, let's look at this real quick. Uh, um, where is it at? I think he looked up bone. As a matter of fact, no, I don't think. I think he did look up bone, and by extension, the body figurative of substance or self same body bone strength, basically. So, what did he look up? He looked up. The bottom line is it doesn't fit. It doesn't work at all. Because now he admitted previously that it's talking about substance. You know, so I think that he's doing what he want to do here. Let's look at it and see something real quick.
i.e., as pronoun, self, same, body, bone, life. So the substance was taken out of him.
Right. So he got that substance. It can't be really too much essence. It has to be the substance.
So this is the substance and the basar, flesh. We already went over that. Substance, and he uses, now see how he uses these words, bone of my bones. This really, see, there's no really etsum basar basar. That just says bone bone, flesh flesh, or substance substance. We already went over basar, which could mean L's and different stuff like that. And she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. There go that word lakak again. Lakak, which is to violently seize. Now,
yeah, he's still sticking to that definition of violently seized. Like that's what his text was about to say.
Right. Let's look at this real quick.
Lakach.
Now, a primitive root. The why? Sorry. In the widest variety of application, accept, bring by, carry away, drawn, fetch. I mean, I don't even see where he got violent from. Where did he?
Well, he was reading from the Blue Letter Bible, and what he did basically was he kept reading more down into other definitions from the lexicon and what in other ways it was used. So the actual meaning just means like what you have there, to bring to present, serve. Like, but what he did was he kept reading down into the lexicon where violently seized. But where he got violently seized was in the context in the lexicon, whereas they were talking about uh, in the context of, like, you say a king took a city, or you say like a
Right.
king took a town or nation. Then you say he
Right.
violently seized. So he used the context of when one will conquer another and applied it to the context in this, but this is not even using that context at all.
Right. And see, that's why it's very important that when you're dealing with these scriptures, not to take one word and look at the whole text and see how it's relating to that word. And I think that for the most part, what he does is he takes those words and he doesn't use them properly. And when he does that, they don't relate to the actual text. So that's the problem right there.
Right.
You got a lot of static going on in the background.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. How's my mic? Is it okay now?
It sounds pretty cool now. Yeah, but that's the thing. So let's look at this real. Let's see what he's talking about.
So we didn't went through that, y'all. I want to get to this garden story. But things get very interesting. When and mostly after when they get kicked out and what happens. Apple, you're gonna see that these words mean something totally different. Let's go to let's see here. You're gonna get a totally different picture in here. All right. Peace, Big Brill. Sarah Aha Hotep says, I thought Lex studied Kemet. What's this? Bro, they can't put me in a box. I study all things.
We can tell.
Actually, we can't tell.
Let's go to.
I'm saying, when you listen, when somebody's studying all things, they taking on the same mindset of
let's go to eat.
those very people. So you become what you call a schizo.
And all of that.
Yeah, but because
So,
it's so incorrect when it comes to language and
That happens after
all that stuff, it's like
it's in life.
he's not really studying. I don't think he's really studying.
He basically just reading the stuff, and once he reading it or some of it, he's not really getting off into in depth in it to really understand it and know the argument. So when you're dealing with somebody that's gonna do the homework and get in depth with it, then he basically half A in it. That's what he doing. Yep, he half A in it, But let's go into it and get a little bit, see what this brother talking about. The vortex. Let's go into the vortex.
By eating them. Eating his fruit. And the man saying, eat of every tree of the garden, thou mayest freely eat, but if the tree is eat. Now here we go. Let's get to the ditty gritty.
The ditty gritty.
Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And God said, ye should not eat of the garden. I know this story. I really want to go through every single one of these words, but I don't want to take up that much time because it's all very...
Right, so hold on. Before we go there, let's deal with some stuff real quick and get off into some theology real quick. First off, we always want to make sure that we look at purpose. We're entering into a chapter where there's purpose here. Remember, the redactor is actually pointing out these things for a purpose, so let's really just dive into that real quick and break some things down before we let this brother, get off into his vortex. The vortex. Now, huh?
Now, my bad, man. My wife had called, but I'm back.
Okay. All right. So what one of the things we want to look at is always what is God's purpose, and what does he do to go about to bring about his purpose. I always take a dispensational approach, and we know mainly, the dispensation is defined as basically as a stewardship or administration. And for anybody to know what administration is that you have been given something and you administrate to that. You're given, say for instance, if you're given like Adam in his case, he was given dominion and he was given a home or some estate, an inheritance, and he was made a administrator, and therefore he must practice stewardship of what he was made to administer to. So understand that. So that's basically what we look at. The Greek of that is okinomia, which is G36 and 22, and basically what it means is, as I stated before, administration, guardianship, stewardship, and when we begin to look at this, it deals with a moral, moral or probationary period, basically. So we're dealing with a man basically being put on probation within this stewardship or administration. And what we must realize is it's almost like a job. It's like when you get a job, you don't right off the back just get the benefits, but the benefits are going to come, but you must prove yourself
90
worthy.
day probation.
Huh?
90-day probation.
Right, definitely, definitely. So and you got to be on time coming to work. You can't be missing days. Your conduct, what you're doing at the job, got to be on point. So you got a 90-day probationary period. So that's what we're dealing with. And so when we look at how God deals with angelic beings and also human beings, we have to understand that He takes this approach of administration and stewardship. And there's a probationary period that man and also angels are all beings in the universe must prove themselves before they can ascend to another level. You know what I'm saying? To a level of godlyhood. Now, one of the things that we always deal with is the nine features within a dispensation. And some of these things you don't have to really deal with, but for the most part we bring these things out. The definition or the name of that dispensation. You know, and what we're entering in now is the dispensation of conscience. And we're gonna deal with that of self conscience. Now remember, we just got done coming up out of a dispensation of what we would have called administration period um of what was it of innocence. And reason why we say innocence, because man was innocent until he was found guilty or proven guilty by his conduct and actions from disobeying the law or the instructions that was given unto him. So he was in a state of innocence. He was not guilty of anything. No guilt can be brought up on him. No shame can be brought up on him because he had not done any of these things. So we call this the dispensation of innocence. And so that's what we deal with. One of the points for us dealing with, you know, um, one of the points of the nine features of dispensation. Then we always have a length of time. Now, sometimes the length of time is basically questionable. It's not always there, but in the case of when we talk about the dispensation of of the dispensation of, let's say, well, I wouldn't say grace, or the dispensation of promise, we see that there is a date concerning the promise that was given to Abraham when he was 75 until you know they until we get over to the dispensation of law, when men begin to take on the law, or when the children of Israel begin to take on the law and begin to conduct themselves, and so these are what we call conduct themselves according to the law or the instructions that God was giving it to them. Now remember, these things are not just, oh, this is just this. No, these things are basically God's dealing with man from the past and the historical times in the present, and then also future dealings. This is how He deals with man. So we talk about the second point of the length of the time. That's not necessarily needed to be there, but that's what we do for us dealing with one of these features of the nine features of dispensations. But what we notice is we always have a favorable beginning. There's always a favorable beginning. What do I mean by that? Adam had a favorable beginning. Adam was given dominion. He was also blessed, and he was given provision, basically on what his meat should have been and what he can use to sustain him. So not only was he given dominion and was he given a home and real estate, but he was a minister of that, and he was given the necessary tools in order to administrate what he was given um, a minister to. So
Right.
go ahead. You want to say something?
Now, I mean, you can confirm this. The point that he was trying to make, and I've seen that video, is that he was trying to say that man was put in a position in which he was either one set up to fail or it was a prison. But the main thing that comes to common sense is if this was the case, why then, upon his failure, he was kicked out of said prison? That doesn't make sense. Who goes to jail and then, because of their misconduct, is put back out of the jail and to be free? It doesn't make any
Right,
sense. If
right,
anything, you're going to jail for the crime that you committed. Another thing is if you go to Hebrews and you read on about man, it says, "What is man that thou art mindful of him? That you put all things under his feet. You made all things subject to him." So again, we see evidence that not only that did God speak to us about the prophets in the past, but He also was mindful of man to make him subject, or everything subject to Him. There is
right,
power in that image and in responsibility. That's why when Adam came, it was upon him to uphold all that was just and right and what was Torah or instruction. We fell. Now, here's how powerful the position of man is. Christ had to come in the likeness of sinful flesh in order to set things right. So, why did he come as man? Because it is the authority from that standpoint that things must be fixed again,
right,
but with divine power in mind.
right,
So, to undermine that and to say that that doesn't have any power or that it was a prison is nothing at all. In fact, the only prison that's mentioned in the Bible is the flesh, which Paul says, "Oh, this body of mine, who shall deliver me from this body of death?" That's in Romans chapter 7. But then when you go to Romans chapter 8, he said, "I thank God through Christ Jesus that there is now therefore no condemnation for those who are in him." I thank God because I'm now delivered from the body. So it is the body that is the prison. And it is the prison that Adam discovered when he found out he was naked. So the prison was after the fact. He discovered the prison, and he was adhered to the prison when he sinned against the Most High God. That's why Paul explains sin. It says that sin is now bound to the flesh, to the prison.
right. Well, I somewhat somewhat see, but I don't I kind of disagree with that. I don't think that the prison is basically not the flesh, because the flesh has appetites, but the appetites basically come from the mindset. So I think
Right, right, right. No, no, no. I agree with you. Well, when I say flesh, I don't mean necessarily the body. I'm talking about what guides it, and it is the consciousness, because Paul illustrates that the it could be controlled, or you gain control, or you defeat that when you renew, by the renewing of your mind.
right. And see, the only reason why the flesh has the appetites that it has is because of the mindset of man. And see, it had and what he invited into his paradigm or his world. Had he basically not took on what we see in the garden, then we would have never experienced what we see now as a people, far as but so I think that for the most part, the prison is basically the whole battle is the battle of the mind. The
That's right.
war is in the mind, and if you can control the mind, you can basically cause your very material world. You know what I'm saying, to be to be basically in shalom or blessed or wholeness. But if you can't control your mind, then I mean it's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? It's a wrap
Right.
because you're gonna
Like like
go ahead.
like case in point. Case in point. Right. Two examples. One out the Old Testament, one out the New Testament. Was Adam and Eve naked prior to the fall?
Yes,
Okay. Were they naked after the fall?
yes.
What changed? The perspective, the mind.
Yeah, the
The,
mind.
the, the,
Right.
the condition of the body has not influenced the change at all. Another case in point in the New Testament, when Peter when he asked him to step onto the water, when Jesus was walking on water, he was walking on the seas. He came out and he stood with Christ. Did the water change? No, it did not. Peter, he fell into the water because he had little faith.
Right.
Nothing changed with the water. Nothing changed with Christ. Nothing changed with his body. It was simply his perspective.
Right. And so that's the whole thing I'm looking at is it's always, you know, it's that man was spirit before he was body. In other words, before he was put in a body, he was spirit. And so when we look at it, he is a what man consists of, or the makeup of man consists of, or the doctrine of man consists of spirit, soul, which is attached to the spirit, and also housed in the body. Now, when we look at this, right, as you stated, after he had ate or partook of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he began to, basically become to a point to where he was self. He took on a self-conscious approach. In other words, they were naked before, but they were not ashamed. There was no guilt there. So I think that for the most part, when the nakedness that it's dealing with can be taken on a spiritual and also a physical level when we look at it. So what do I mean by that? One of the things that we see that we have a natural explanation for is um, what man desired to clothe himself with. Why does he clothe himself with it? You know, certain people desire to look a certain way, either if it's by makeup or by gold or by jewelry. So what is the cost? How far would he go to cover himself and be focused more so on self than on the mark, or on God's instructions? That's the thing that we see here in the text is that, you know, once man begins to partake of this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, his eyes begin to be open to self, and he begins to cover self. So we see that early on, not only does he cover self, but once he try, one of the ways that what man try to cover self is basically, as we can see in life, we can see these natural things going on in life. Is one of the ways man try to cover self is by lying, or by hiding, or cloaking themselves. And so, this we can see this is a reality. This is nothing. We're not talking about something that's so mystic that can be hid. No, this is a reality in life. People lie due to the fact of they want to cover themselves.
That's
And
right.
so it comes to the point to where people don't want to take self-responsibility. And if they don't take self-responsibility, they're going to blame somebody, whether if it's God, whether if it's their spouse. But, most of the people don't want to just blame themselves. And so we see this right in the narrative. Like, this ain't so mystic. This is so plain and simple. These are life learned lessons that we're talking about here.
I'm gonna get a little deep here, and I'm gonna give a personal testimony on what I learned. If you, my brother, who right now at this point is saved and everything's good with him, but at one point he was a Satanist. Um, so I went under his bed and I grabbed his book. He had a satanic Bible, and he had some incantations and rituals drawn down on a piece of paper and all that stuff, right? And so when I confronted him on it, I confronted him in ignorance. I said, why are you worshiping the devil, this, that, and the other? And he says, don't be an idiot. He said, it has nothing to do with worshiping the devil. It's about pleasing yourself. So, and so there's a thin line when we pass around the statement, we say, know thyself or self knowledge, or, like in the conscious community, they throw that term out there, know yourself.
Right.
See, what I learned though is that in satanic ritual or Satanism, my brother taught me after he became more conscious, and I learned on my own and what my father taught me is that it's the recognition of self is more so in the pride in oneself and recognizing your ability and what you're capable of doing outside of God. In other words, in Satanism, if you aim to please the body, you shall do so. Or if you feel in your mind that justice, you can take justice into your own hand, and you can punish someone for evil doing because of what you feel is objective, or not objective, but subjective to you in the morality. Meaning, if you feel a man is dishonest, then you can punish him in your own view. That's recognizing self. And when they go in death, it's actually looking at one's body, the chakras, the Sephiroth tree. It's always this recognition of self. Now, here's the crazy part about it. If you look at the sin that was committed in the garden, after they ate it and their eyes were open, the thing that they realized and recognized was themselves, and they were ashamed. So number one is they already basically cursed in God's face in what he has made. Because when God made man, he said that it was good. But when they looked at it, they said it was a shame. Now, if you look at Ezekiel 28, it talks about Lucifer. He says, I have covered you. You are a beautiful cherub, a musical cherub. I have covered you. You were able to walk among the fiery stones. I have covered you in onyx, beryl, topaz, sapphire, diamond. And if you realize, the covering that he gave Lucifer was the same stones that you see that were in the pattern that Moses was shown that was in the ephod, the priesthood, being able to reflect the glory of God.
Right.
So when the devil recognized himself, because Adam wasn't the first one to do that, the devil was, because when he saw in himself, he took pride in his heart and said, I will be like the Most High God. He recognized that. See, so self-recognition equates to pride and disobedience, and it makes you an enemy of God. It makes you enmity against God. That's
Right.
why when you do that, you're carnal. That's why Paul said the carnal mind is enmity against God, is not subject to the law of God, can be. So when we do that, we have to realize that we're putting ourselves into direct opposition against the God that made us. When we
Right.
say I can please myself with another man, or we said homosexuality is bad, we're basically saying that woman is not good for men.
Exactly.
Contradictory against what God has said. So
Yeah.
we have to realize that. Even in the book of Daniel, right? It says that the son of perdition, he will have no regard for woman. Why? Why would he have
Mm-mm.
no regard for woman?
Right. And see another thing we look at, right? Like, um, so we see already that, there's definitely God has given a favorable beginning. There's no excuse, man. Like, only thing God asks is for obedience. So let's look. You have also, your point forward, and when we look at, basically what it deals with is the test for responsible agents. In other words, you know, whatever we do as individuals, and when we look at reality, as when we look at, realism, what we can see is that we as individuals, we have to test things. We test those things to see if those things basically, um, will overcome, or, for instance, if I put a car out in the factory, when I put that car out, I mean, when I'm working on that car in the factory, before I put it out of, the factory and put it on the streets, it has to go through ongoing test. to see if the seatbelt gonna hold, to see if the would an airbag pop out, if a collision was to happen, because there's all these possibilities that can happen. And also, things are, when we look at it as things as um the future basically being partially open to God. In other words, there are certain things that are certain, but then there are certain things that are partially open, which we can see that causes possibilities. So there are some things that are uncertain that God has left basically open. And that thing that he has left open is in regards to man. What will he choose? So when we say that God basically has all knowledge, how do we define all knowledge? We look at as all knowledge as being that God has all knowledge basically in every possible of every possible door that you can take, every variation that you can take, every possibility. God knows, has knowledge in that basically. But when we look at it, God knew it was possible that he can do this. And there are things that are certain, and those things that are certain, we see certain is basically um, God knowing what will happen if you do this, or what is predestined for us in regards to um, hell, or blessings, cursings, life. All of these things are basically things that are for certain. Are, if you begin to do these things, then you will be blessed. That is a promise. The promises of God are, yay. So if you do what you're instructed to do, then you will be blessed. That's concrete. If you don't do what you not supposed to be doing, you will be cursed. You will be damned. That's concrete just as well. Now, what is the things that are open that God has given you? That one may say, well, God has all knowledge, that he knows basically what you're going to do. I don't take that standpoint. I take the standpoint that God has left that open to you. That God has not chose to basically retain that knowledge, but has left that open unto you, and has given you this choice on what you want to do. Now, we can take the standpoint and say, well, God knew. Well, that's fine. But if you say that God knew, then that doesn't make it God that made the choice for you. You made that choice, not God. So when we look at the foreknowledge of God, and we look at what God is dealing with, God's foreknowledge could very well see that there are some things that is certain, that, and also some possibilities in life. Is God still all sovereign, or is God still sovereign? Yes. Is he still in control? Yes, he's still in control. Why is he still in control? Because he's all powerful. In other words, he knows already, I'm going to checkmate you in 6 moves.
You know what's amazing though is that this is for people who have an atheistic mindset, or when they try to question the nature of God, how is this possible? Uh, I will say this. I'll be bold to say this, and I can actually prove it. There is scientific evidence that the nature of God, explained in that way, as LaRon just explained it, is scientifically sound. How do we know this? There's a protein that is found inside birds that has helped them to use magnetic navigation. And it's also found in photosynthesis complex in plants called the cryptochrome. Now, what cryptochrome does is that in the contact of light, quantum biologists at the electron actually is hit by light, And when it transfers that energy to create sugars from that light into the plant, it actually travels on the shortest path to get to the next molecule in order to synthesize that energy or that sugar. Now, here's what they found that was freaky. When the cryptochrome is hit, two electrons are paired together in what was called quantum entanglement, or they're in quantum synchronicity, right, Ron?
Yes.
The electron that leaves that molecule goes, this is what they found that is weird. It is as though the electron went backwards in time and worked its way forwards in time because this is what it does in a split second, a fraction of a second, actually in the trillionths of a second. It calculates all possible avenues for the shortest open path to the next molecule. And then once it discovers the shortest path by going forwards in time, it goes backwards in time and chooses that path in the trillionth of a second. So we have an electron that is all knowing, all powerful, can make any move it likes, knows the beginning, knows the end from the beginning, and all things laid out, knows all paths, and yet was able to choose according to his own will based on his own design and desire. So if an electron can do this within a plant to synthesize sugar, how much more than an intelligent being?
Right. Right. So, and when we look at some of the characteristics of God, we know that God and creatures basically enjoy mutually influencing relationships or relations. We can look at that. We can also look at the future is basically partly open. God does not fully settle it because we see also that we as individuals have free will. So he gives us, he doesn't violate our will, but he does hold us accountable for the choices that we make. So we can see that. We can also see, you know, um, God's love, you know, uh, exemplified by God, and it is the human ethical and imperative, basically. So we can definitely see those things. We can see God's primary characteristics of His love. We can see all of these different things. So when we look at it, we look at there is responsibility of what we call libertarian free will. God has granted us as being free agents to be significant with freedom and responsibility, basically to make moral choices. So we have that ability, which we can, which the future hangs on those things. In other words, the choices that we make as being free agents can cause either life or death, joy or peace, basically, you know or evil days. God has basically left these things open, so there is an openness of how we choose. God knows all the reality as it is, or He knows all reality as it is. you know um we can look at His God as He knows what's possible. He knows future choices of free moral agents as possibilities, basically. So He knows the future choices of man, and this is reality. This is He knows that these things are possibilities for free moral agents, but these are actually calculated risks that He has taken, and a calculated risk that we look at is something that has been estimated before time. So if that person take this possible route, it ain't like God just come up with a ideal. No, it's already been estimated, already tallied up in the calculation already. So, God allows the future to remain open to the extent that God chooses. Therefore, the future is partly open when we look at it. Let's talk about God's sovereignty. God knows all reality as it is, once again. And, so God speaks and knows the certainties that God will carry out in His own power as certainties. This what makes Him sovereign and all powerful and all omnipotent. Because Not only do he know that these things are certainties, and God knows all of the reality as it is, God has what we call determinism, future determinism. In other words, he knows already, look, I structured this thing, I made this thing. I know that there is calculated risk behind it. I have already estimated the calculated risk or possibilities that man will take, different ways that they will take. But I've already worked out the variations of those possibilities already. So I'm good at this arithmetic already. So if they take this route, I am sovereign enough, right, to where there are things that I can carry out with my omnipotent, with my power, because he's all powerful.
And you see that example all throughout the Bible. For example, Christ says that wide is the way that leadeth to destruction, but narrow is the way that leadeth unto life. Um, you see that also it says that only a third will be saved, right? And
Right,
how possibilities are worked out. However, according to his design and what he wants, we have the 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe of Israel. So he worked out specific calculations based on what he wants to do according to his purpose. However, notice that in everything else, in every other avenue of making it or salvation is always based on a probability, never an exact number. Is a third will be saved, or it's uh, it's a wide that leads to destruction. Narrow is the way that leads unto life. There's no way to the Father but by me. So he's already breaking down the probability in the ways that he already has aligned for us in order so we can come into the straight and narrow gate, the good gate. Uh, that gate, Lex, that you didn't really read about,
right,
saying that all that come before me are thieves and robbers, and he was talking about himself as a gate. And you took it to say that he meant those that were born before him, which doesn't make sense for a being that's infinite and immortal and came from eternity. But when we look into that, we actually see that he's talking about probability, chance, and avenues that has been given to you. Like he says to the children of Israel, he said, I set before you life and death. I urge you now this day to choose what? Life.
right.
He
So
didn't
God,
say, you know, some of you are determined to be dead and some of you I'm going to do this to. I mean, he didn't say that.
right. So God basically knows reality as it is, and so He sees it as it is, and so He has already, you know, um, He's already, like, for instance, when we look at the scriptures, we can see God's sovereignty. We can see that God deals with emotion and that He's affected by the choices of free moral agents. God responds to free moral agents, and God changes His mind and plans in response to free moral agents. Now we have seen that in scripture. We have seen to where man, God kept his promise, but he changed his way on how he would bring about his promise several times in the scripture. So when we say God is when he says God does not change, God does not change concerning his promises. If he said he's going to do it, he's going to do it. Now, how he bring about his promises might change, because due to the fact of, we see that individuals play a role in that, or those which is conditional matters of God keeping his covenant with people. So we've seen God several times say, I'm gonna bring this about this way, well, not this way. I'm gonna give you this, and then you're gonna have this. But the people who the covenant was made to did not keep their bargain, and so therefore it was either given to their seed, but he kept his promise and he was faithful to the end of his bargain. And so, go ahead. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, because it's interesting you say that he works through all the variables because we see, like for instance, in the Old Testament, the coming of the Son, Israel or Christ, and how that was supposed to occur. We see how he calculates that if we look at Daniel's clock, how he calculated all the way from the time of the edict that went out to rebuild Jerusalem up until the time of the cutting off of the Messiah. However, none of the variables were explained. For example, it was never prophesied that Zechariah's mouth would be shut because that was a variable he had to work out. It was never prophesied that Joseph would thought to put away his wife, but the angel visited him. He worked that out. So when you see several times throughout this gospel, you see the plan, and in the gospels you see the fruition of the premonition, but you see the variables he had to work out in order for that to happen. Even in Revelation, when Christ says, even for the elect's sake, that those days will be shortened for the elect's sake. So it's like he changed or made a variance in order for certain things to happen and to work its way through. You see them
Right.
subtly change. It's like, uh, you ever heard of philosophy where you see a river flowing and they always call the river time? And they said time never changes for anybody. Time simply changes itself to keep doing what it's doing. Like if you had a river and it was flowing and you threw a big rock in that river, what is the water going to do to that rock?
It's gonna ripple and sink.
Well, yeah, the rock is going to, but the water is going to flow right around it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they always call time like a river. They say the river of time, the stream of time. If you throw anything in the stream, it simply washes right over. It's gonna keep going the same path it's going.
Right.
So just the same thing with God. He's a flowing stream that's gonna get it done how he wants it done. It doesn't matter what you throw into it. It's just gonna simply flow around it, flow over it, take a detour, whatever, but it's still gonna get to the point where he intends to go.
Right. So let's look at this real quick. Now it says it. You know, where is it at? It says that verse 2. Hold on for a minute. I'm sorry. Hold on.
You know what though? I find it interesting though, is that the man Christ, that was in a likeness, the man side of Christ recognized that concept as well. Because although he knew that it was his will to sacrifice him for the salvation of man, remember at the Garden of Gethsemane, he was praying, Father, if it be your will, Father, if you can, take this cup from me, but let your will be done. Remember he prayed that?
Yep.
So notice, Christ was still praying for the possibility as a man, because when, at that time his father had forsaken him, like he said on the cross, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? But he was acting as a man, but as a man, he still understood the concept that God's will always will be done. Even if he took that cup from him, he says, let this cup pass from me, but let your will be done. That's why Christ says, if you don't know what to pray for, simply say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name, that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Because
Right.
you have no choice but to follow what he says. Because if you don't know what to pray for, then the inevitable is going to happen. Because he works it out. Man, it's so deep, dude. Oh man. It's like it's gonna happen the way he wants it. Because remember, the Bible says that it pleased him to bruise him. It pleased him to crush him.
Exactly. So that and so definitely is that you know like I say, no matter what you do, you can take different. There's different routes that you can take. It's like a chessboard. You could take different moves. You could push the pawn and all the pieces the way you want to push them. But there is rules to this thing. If you're gonna play chess, you're gonna play chess. It's not playing checkers. You know, you have options, but the options have to be regulated by rules. What's for certain is there is a board and there is pieces and there is you have an opponent. So you're gonna have to play that board. You're gonna have to push them pieces. You know, God is sovereign. He's a player. He basically already know what moves already, how he gonna move. You know, you may move this way, but he already got it calculated that if he move this way, then I'm gonna move that way. I'm gonna capture this pawn right here or capture this knight. So that's what it's looking like. That's what it's looking like. But at the end of the day, I guarantee you, I'm gonna checkmate you in seven moves. I'm gonna say seven just to put it there. I'm gonna checkmate you in 7 moves. You can move this way or move that way. I'm gonna checkmate you in 7 moves. So he already got it down packed. That hey, look, this is for certain right here. Now there are some things that are open when it comes to us as individuals that choose. So there's certain things that God has not made. He has not planned out. He has not predestined. He has left that open to you, and you must conform to what He has predestined, which is life or death. I mean, you must conform. I'm sorry, you must conform to Christ, right? And when you conform to Christ, you skip that thing that is death, you know, and you get life. Now, what's set in stone is life and death, life and death. And if you conform to the image of His Son, you're gonna get life and more abundantly. So, we look at the dispensation of conscience. We look at the favorable beginning, new beginning altogether, with inhabitants having a knowledge of God and a new covenant with Him. We also look at the test, obedience to the dictates of the conscience as to right and wrong. So after man fell, he would have had to been obedience to the dictates of his conscience to right and wrong. Now, did he follow that? He was tested on it, but did he follow that? What was God's purpose? What was the purpose of God by this? So we see now, since man took on the concept of the knowledge of good and evil, he was to use that good and evil to guide him in proper exercise of his conscience, of what is right or what is wrong, or how to refuse what was wrong, right? So fallen man will be taught, that only obedience to God, only by obedience. I'm sorry, that only by obedience to God, that man can be restored to his original dominion and get rid of the curse that we see that was on the earth as it's at this time now and at that time. So what is God doing? He's testing man under freedom of conscience, with strengths of compulsion, and it's basically saying if man will voluntarily choose right or wrong to serve God instead of Satan. Now, if man, on the contrary, will choose righteousness, or if voluntary righteousness was rejected, God will add laws and punishments, as we see. And this is why we say the dispensation of human government and also the dispensation of law, right? The dispensation uh, of these laws being initiated to govern a people that will not walk accordingly to their conscience of that which is good and evil. So they begin to do more evil and imagine more evil than anything. So it seems to me they was not ready, or they could not withstand what was in the tree of knowledge, but they only did more evil, you know, and became corrupt in their conscience. See, a conscience is something that um, must be fed spiritual things in order to keep it from being corrupt.
That's right. Absolutely right.
So we see man being, in a fallen state, you know, it seems to me he doesn't have he had the ability to choose what was best or good for himself, but he wouldn't do it, and it seems to me he lost that ability, and now he can't decipher, so now he's powerless because he has corrupt that once ability he had to use as a mechanism where he can choose more good things overall than rather than bad things. So he became powerless and subject to everything he basically had dominion over. So it seems to me he's because he is in a fallen condition and rendered powerless, and he doesn't have the dominion. So it seems to me he has fallen powerless to all wickedness and demonic angels and demons. And it seems to me he is in unity, in a voluntary unity through sin with these demonic forces. And these demonic forces only seek the eternal damnation of man.
Yeah, they don't want man to come to his full potential, what he's capable
Right.
of, what he was originally built to do.
Right.
Um, and that's just it.
Go ahead.
I mean that's just it. I mean that's the name of the game now. It's just because if you think about it, um, going back to that Ezekiel 28, was talking about Lucifer and his covering, and I mentioned how that same covering, if you look at it, was given to the high priest, who were the sons of Aaron, or Levi, in the sons of Aaron were the high priest that wore this garment. And if you look at it, the Shekinah, or the glory that came out of the Holy of Holies, it was reflected off of the ephod and it was put upon the people, right? So
Right.
if you look at it, the demonic forces realize that man has been put into a position where they can reflect the glory of God. Now that was the types and shadows, but when we look at Christ, Christ said himself many times, "When you see me, you see the Father. I and the Father are one." The Hebrews also touch on it, saying, "God who was made, spoke to us in time past, this, that, and the other, glorify him and talking about him." And then it says, "But we don't see him. We see Christ, who was made a little lower than the angels." So it talks about the reflection of Christ, the reflection of us seeing Christ in who God is. But again, Christ tells us, or Paul tells us rather, that we should be made heirs, not only heirs, but joint heirs with Christ. And God said that we will be conformed to the image of his son. So what was talked about in the priesthood, because we shall be kings and priests, what was talked about in that priesthood, the types of shadows that was shown in the pattern in heaven to Moses, is about to come to pass. We are about to conform to that image, to that actual being that will reflect the actual glory, the Shekinah of the Most High. And that's something that they do not want to happen, because we will come into fruition of what we were actually made for.
Right. Yeah. And so look, check this out. Now let's get back to this Lex Vortex. You know, I think we made we see the means of, we always want to look at the means of God accomplishing his purpose just as well. You know, look at conscience, freedom of will, the devil's malice, and God's means that God used to bring man to a place of utter dependence upon him for help and redemption from curses, basically. The conscience is always something to demonstrate, how exceeding sinful man will become. Whatever he chooses, if he chooses evil, or and evil instead of good. So we can see already that the freedom of action always demonstrate how far we will go in rebellion against God. So as we have this type of freedom of action, you know, we're free moral agents. You know, some people go to the extreme. You got this brother Lex Vortex calling God an asshole. You know what I'm saying? So we got,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So we have to look at this stuff. So he, you know, and he's given that freedom, you know, and it demonstrates how far man will go, even to a reprobate state. And they will go this far until it's necessary for God to interfere, basically, and execute His sovereignty, or show His sovereignty. You know, did his basically eternal plan that He has will not be, you know, not be interfered with. So, you know, I mean, so God will permit you to do your foolishness, and he will even allow you to go to the full limit of your wickedness. We've seen Him done it when He says, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full yet. So He will allow you to go into folly, right? And before He actually start to come and execute judgment on your behind, you will actually think that He was with you the way He let you do it. But then when He come and execute judgment on you, then you looking foolish. So let's look at this brother right here and see what he talking about. Let's put the hammer down on this brother now.
Very important, and they all
Ah, man, here come my.
I love that my shop is part of the morning ritual around here.
You need to get that YouTube red.
People rely on that first cup, and I wouldn't want to mess with that. But when back pain got bad, I couldn't sleep.
Then the brother always used like a demonic symbol, like dragons and
single
different.
one of these words, but I don't want to take up that much time because it's all very important and they all tell a different story. But I want to get to some of the things that's going to shock you. All right. For God doth know that in the day that you eat, your eyes shall be open and all of that. Y'all understand that part of the story, right? Now here we go. Here we go. Now, I ain't going to get into it, but y'all got to look up what eat means and to take part of the fruit. You'll see that has a sexual connotation. Go look. Well, maybe I'll go back at those words, but here's what I want to get to. Here is what I want to get to. Did whatever they violated the rules, right? Slaves violated the rules. Here's what we get into. Oh yeah, here it is, right here. I heard thy voice, and I heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord. Now this right here is what I want to get to. Check this out, family. And they heard, that's the word Shema, like when you hear them say, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, the voice. Let's just look up voice right quick. I'm getting to it, y'all. Just be patient with me. This is a masculine now. Voice. Now, look at the connotations if they heard the voice, noise, sound, thunder, proclamation. Send out, thunderings, fame, voice, sound, noise, voice, sound of an instrument, lightly, frivolity. From an unused root meaning to call aloud, a voice or a sound, aloud, bleeding, crackling, cry, fame, likeness, lowing, noise, hold, peace, proclaim, proclamation. So this is the connotation of, say you're outside somewhere and, you know, your father is calling you with a very strong tone. Where the hell are you? Basically, where'd you go? Right? Y'all got that? All right. That's why it says thunder. You know, this is not of right here. You know what I'm saying? This is like, yo, where the hell are you at? You know what I'm saying? So check it out. You're going to find something interesting in a minute. Okay? So that's in the voice of the Lord Elohim walking, halak. Stuff for fun. Voices don't walk, so there must be some other connotation here.
Okay, hold on. His
Walk
hands
come
again.
all the way along.
What'd you say?
We can keep listening to him, but he's implying that he used because of thunderings and loud. I have a question for him. Has he ever read Matthew 3:17 when when he walked through, and also when the dove descended upon him, that was like the Holy Spirit, and they heard a voice like thunder crackling that says, "This is my son, who I am well pleased. This is my beloved son, who I am well pleased." So how does this imply that he was angry? When in the Gospels they heard the same voice in the same tone, but in the sense of pride for his son. But you can go ahead.
Yeah, buddy. Let's look at something real quick. Because he jumped, and I wonder why he jumped all the way to that. And but he didn't really deal with the rest. But we'll jump with him. We'll jump with him. So we'll jump with him. All right. So let's look at it and really break this down. Oh man, let's break this down. And they heard the voice. They heard a sound, a crackling, as he says, you know, and of the Lord God walking in the garden. This can be taken of they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden, you know, in the cool of the day. What does this cool mean? The Ruach.
That's
Uh-huh. Yeah, so um and Adam and his wife hid themselves. So basically we see as a result of them I'm super tired. As a result of them partaking of this fruit of the tree and disobeying God, you know, basically it causes them to hide themselves as a result of that, and to not to be attached with God anymore. See, I think that this is implying or conveying that there is a separation from God in them, and this is why, you know, he's asking them, um, "Where art thou?" You know what I'm saying, or calling out to them in the presence of the Lord amongst the trees. And the Lord called unto Adam and said to him, "Where art thou?" You know, and he said, "I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and hid myself." So it shows that there is a detachment here. You know, I think that that separation that it talks about, that the day you will eat of this tree, you will surely die, is what the scriptures is talking about when he says in Isaiah, "For your sins have separated you away from your Lord." So I think that when, you know, we look at sin means to miss the mark, or when you look at sometimes when you miss the mark, you offer a kata'ah, which is a sacrifice, a sin offering in general. So I think that right here is evident that a separation had came up, and this is why we see that the veils usually come up between God and man. and where there's a mediator is between God and man, as well as the veil is actually signifying the separation of God from man, and also the priest, of God, separating God from man, because he stands in a order to where he is the one to see the face of God when he goes behind the veil and he gets instructions and he relays it to the people. And I think that for the most part, Christ did something to cause, you know, man, you know, to be able to relate to the Father, you know, on a basis of individually, because we can see that because once he rent the veil, he's that was signified that God had basically made another way, for men to enter in and to present themselves as living sacrifices, as being priests after the order of Melchizedek. So I think that for the most part, we can kind of see that the veils went up after man did what he did here. There was a separation from God, which caused also the way of the tree of life to be kept and guarded in the garden. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying, I mean, and when the high priest was in there, and his mind wasn't right, meaning if something was trying to come in his heart, he was in the holy of holies. Behind that veil, he died.
Uh, and they put a string. They attached a string on him to pull his butt right on the bottom there. Yeah, but he died. So we see that the veil is causing the separation. Now we see that Adam was told to keep the garden, and he was encircled or enclosed in the Garden of Eden in this pleasure or delight, and God had delighted in him and given him pleasure, and gave him a helpmeet, aid to help him to bring forth after his kind. And so we see that when he sinned, he was taken out of his position, and the angel that we see, a cherubim, was given his position to keep the way, whereas man, as Adam, was keeping the way. Now Adam knew about opposition, because when you look at the Hebrew there, the keep means there is dealing with it deals with also as one might intrude or something like that. And so he's keeping the way of this garden, and he knows that there's opposition because he defines language. He's the definite article Adam. And so he knows what death is. He knows what these different things is. He's not no little kid learning. No, he already knows. He's attached to God. And because he's attached to God, he's in the image and likeness of God, then he has the ability to name animals and define what language is. And so when God told him something, it wasn't like that he didn't know. No, he knew it. It's just, would he make the choice to abide by it? And so when he did not make that choice, the veils came up.
Hey, who was debating with him?
Debating with who?
Then he tried to say that Adam didn't know what that was.
I don't know who that was, but he got smashed.
Smashed him up, took his hat off, and walked on his way out.
Smashed that boy, man.
Man.
Right. So I mean, it's clear, man, that we're gonna deal with this. This is gonna be a part 4. We probably didn't get all the way into it, but for the most part, we're gonna end this here. It's 2:14. I'm tired and sleepy, but I just want to say peace and blessings to the fam out there. Make sure y'all click and subscribe. And if y'all can, please share this class, or share this information to the people, on your pages, as well as Twitter, Instagram, and also Facebook or whatever page you guys got out there that you can help share. I don't do AdSense. I just I'm just trying to get this information out. So I'm not knocking anybody that's doing AdSense, but I don't do it, so I'm not looking to get no type of profit about for this. I just want to teach my people. When I mean my people, what I'm saying, my people in general, and then also people that's willing to learn, outside of the neighborhoods. But because I come from the neighborhood, I can't do nothing but instruct my people and teach them. Now, if there's anybody, that want to learn, you can always inbox me. And also, if you want to inbox me with some information, I'm open to that, because I'm still learning myself. So hopefully, somebody got something tonight, and y'all have a blessed night. Did you want to say anything, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, we just gonna continue to address people, whatever they bring up, what they have to say, and let's deal with it. Again, I like the way we're doing this. I don't want to make it so that we're talking about the person and doing ad hominem attacks, but I like to address the scholarship, where they're coming from, uh, examining what they're saying. The non-stick stuff gets shut down. Like I said, they want to do that stuff in here and try to say that I don't know anything. The contradictions in Genesis we try to come up with, we smash that up. To say that God is evil, the Hebrew language, you need to go back and study that. In fact, next time you're going to do that in the Bible, try the lexicon and the commentary. I mean, they give you context. So if you want to sit there and try to say them, this is me. Go down and see what the scholars are saying. If you're right. Look at those PhDs and those doctors. Well, they're saying, but look at the comment. And you actually think, because you went to a website, Google for 15 minutes. You automatically have context, lexicon, the medical skills, hence that it was used all down back.
Right.
This is great.
Well, family, you heard it. Peace and blessings to you out there. We'll be doing a number 4. We're actually 58 minutes into this. We still got a whole hour and some probably to go. But we will get through it slowly but for surely. Peace.